Hi, welcome everyone. I am super excited to be joined by Brittany. She is a mama of three. We are going to be talking about parenting, motherhood, as well as what we can learn from outdoor living. I'm really excited to talk about, most importantly, her ministry efforts as well. So, hi, Brittany. How are you? Thanks for joining me.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I'm good. How are you?
Really excited to be here with you. What's been going on lately? What's
Thank
new?
you. That means a lot. Well, lately, my husband has been gone for the last 5 days. He sells knives on the side, so he was doing a blade show in Utah. And I've just been watching the three little ones by myself the last few days, and I don't know what it is with little boys, but they are in a everything's about butt and poop stage right now. And so I'm pretty much like at least 50% of my conversations the last 5 days have been about that area of the body. And like we went to a restaurant the other day, and my youngest, who's 3, started standing up and turning around facing his backside towards everyone and just start smacking away and dancing and so the older two instantly joined up and followed. And next thing you know, I'm like trying to get them to sit down while everyone is standing up, or everyone's looking at them and laughing while they're all just dancing around, shaking their rear ends and slapping it. And I'm like, this. And then yesterday I was changing a diaper, and my 3-year-old said, what color poop is it? I was like, brown. And he's like, is it light brown, medium brown, dark brown? I was like, I don't know, just brown. I don't really want to look at it
Fascinating.
and describe it to you. So that's been my life lately, and
Yeah.
well, I wouldn't trade it for anything, but yeah.
So you are boy mom through and through. Do you mind diving a little bit into your three pillars and a little bit about you and your values and your background?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so long story short, I I grew up, went to college, went to a Bible college, and majored in counseling psychology. Well, my husband, who was my boyfriend at the time, he graduated in outdoor leadership in a northeast Georgia college with a huge waterfall on campus. It's absolutely beautiful. Um, and were married, and every time uh, we had a free time off, which wasn't much because we were crazy busy at work and doing everything we could to pay bills at that time as newlyweds, we would just go hiking on the weekends. And
Mhm.
that was became our new favorite thing to do. But fast forwarding several years, we ended up having 3 boys in 3 years.
Wow.
Not necessarily intentional, but wouldn't trade it for anything. And I I just was blown away. Like I always expected I'd have a daughter. I expected I'd be a girl mom, and I can touch base on that later, like dealing through that. But God was very clear, like all boys. And then if as if that wasn't enough, we felt called to go to Texas for the last 4 years and serve taking care of teenage boys from
Mhm.
at-risk youth situations, crisis situations, and live in the same house with them. So one of the reasons I named my account Brittany and the Boys is because I was the only girl in a home of at least 10 boys at a time, between my husband, my 3 little boys, and then
Yep.
6+ teenage guys all at once. Yeah, I just ended up like it's a whole different world, one I'm not used to, and there's always interesting stories from that and everything. But more than anything, I really enjoyed taking the time to get to know um, teenage boys from all sorts of different backgrounds and live life with them and talk with them through all the hard and heavy stuff, but also cheer with them through all their wins too. And we just closed the chapter on that season, but we're moving on to a very similar season where we are going to be in Washington State and take care of more teenage guys, except they won't be living in our house. They'll just be living on property. So it's a little different in that way, but we're like right nestled in mountains in Washington State, and we get to incorporate more outdoor leadership, uh, hikes and training and learning and all of that. And so we're so excited through this long journey to finally be able to incorporate like two of our passions together, which is like youth and ministry with youth, and also the outdoors, and put it together. Because I think there's just something so beautiful and healing and refreshing about being outside, no matter what season of life you're going through. And so my three content pillars I picked today were ministry with uh, or boys, like boy mom life, all things boys, and then ministry with youth, especially from all sorts of different backgrounds and high risk situations, and then the outdoors and like the way that can be so refreshing, again, regardless with whatever season you are going through. So yeah.
Wonderful. I want to dive a little bit deeper into your takeaways. We have you at a really awesome time on this podcast because you are, like you said, closing a chapter and you're going to do it a little bit differently, but you're going to be doing the same thing in Washington. Can you go a little bit into what you've learned, your takeaways, and what's helped communicate to these boys the most?
Absolutely. So I felt like I got a master class in parenting teenagers. So hopefully I'm prepared when my boys become teenagers. We'll see. But let's see. Biggest things I've learned is just how impactful it is, even in utero, like how you treat and take care of your little ones, or if you have adopted children, how important it is, even from before birth, like how what you're doing while someone's pregnant can really impact their view of life, the way they handle things, so many things about that. And then when they're a baby, even as soon as like the day they're born, like how many things you're actually communicating with them from the second they're born, that teaches them how to shape life, how to view life. Like, should I be scared? Should I trust? Like all the important things there. You know, I, for a while, thought naively going into all of this, and we're still considering adoption. We've considered adoption for years. But like beforehand, we were like, oh, yeah, I can just adopt a kid. And, with how we're going to raise them, he's going to be just fine, which sounds really silly now in hindsight. But like, there is so many important factors, even if you adopt from birth, like you got to take into consideration. So that's one thing. A second thing is how to communicate, which I'm huge on, like just communicating with relationships of all kinds and family and little ones and all that. But like with specifically at risk youth, like two things that really helped were redos and reconciliation. So all their behaviors, good and bad, are communicating something. And so it's really important to think about that before you go straight to like getting on to them really hard if they did something that was not great. Usually there's a huge behavior or some feel like there's a feeling going on under all that behavior, and trying to get to the heart of that. So sometimes when they say something really sassy, we give them the opportunity to do a redo before we instantly start like talking about like, hey, like that is not appropriate, not respectful, and talking all of the things about that. First, we give them a chance to redo, and most of the time they take it. And then reconciliation is so important. Just like not leaving things where they're at, communicating, that talk through it, see what's going on inside, getting to the heart of things, and like what steps can both sides take to reconcile and make sure we're in a great place afterwards. There's no bitterness, no harboring anything at the end of it. And yeah, so those are some really important things through the guys, and just like, again, trying to analyze like what is their behavior saying. For example, you could have a child that has issues with stealing food all the time. And one way you could be like, this kid is like really, really hungry all the time. Then we can dive into why is this kid always hungry all the time? Is it something physical? Is it something, deeper than that from his history and all that? So that was really, really interesting to dive into and learn more about as we worked through teenagers. Learning to have a lot of grace. Like obviously as loving parents, we give lots of grace to our children. It felt very different on a whole different level when it came to teenagers, who again, like most of them came from trauma. So they unfortunately came with baggage that's not their fault at all. Um, and learning to work through that and giving grace. But also like on the positive side, all the love they give and all the lessons they taught me, like it's just, I could talk for days about it and then I'll get emotional, but they've taught me way more than I feel like I've ever taught them sometimes about life and forgiveness and
Mhm.
how they continue to want to trust people, like regardless of how many times they've been hurt. They still want to feel like they can depend on somebody, anybody. They want to be recognized. They want people cheering for them at the games. They want to have that support system, even if they're given the body language that they're fine by themselves. They don't need anybody. Trust me, they do. And some of them have harder shells than others, and it can take a long time to break through them. But uh, yeah, like I again, I'll have to cut at some point because I could talk all day just on that alone and share story after story after story. Um, but yeah, I'm so excited to continue working on that. There's something that's so special about pouring your heart into a teenager that's been through a lot. And it's not just about me teaching them and guiding them and giving them advice and walking with them through the hardships, but also what they give me in return. It's something I can't fully explain, but it's amazing.
I think when we first talked, I mentioned you were boots on the ground, which I really respect and admire for ladies out there that might be dealing with hardship in their own home with their own teenagers. Could you speak a little bit to what to focus on with boys, particularly when they're taught to shut down their emotions? Can you
Yes.
provide some words of solace?
Thank you. Yeah. So one thing I'm really passionate about as a boy mom, and also just like I had brother, I have husband and talking through them and other guys as well, is that I feel like boys have been raised, whether it's through public school or society, whatever, to where they feel like they cannot communicate everything because they always have to give the impression that they need to be strong. Like if you cry, you're showing a sign of weakness. If you express hurt feelings about something, you're being a wimp. Get over it, man up, all those negative things. And I'm sure sometimes when people tell them those things, then it's not intentional to make them feel inferior, but what it can be doing is causing them to like suppress things inside and bury things and feel like, okay, well, I need to give this impression that I've always got everything together. I'm strong. Nothing's going to bother me. I don't cry, don't show weakness, etc. And so I am so passionate with from the little boys to the big teenagers to my husband, and even to, my dad is like communicate, like if you're hurt, if you're upset, it's okay. This is a safe place. This is not you showing weakness. You're not wimpy, you're strong, you're brave. Um, and like learning to process things and not just bury things and repress them inside, because that can lead to additional issues, as I'm sure people can know when you just repress things or just hold it in and refuse to share with anybody. So, yeah, that is one thing I'm incredibly passionate about with raising boys and just boys in general. I've also learned they can be just as dramatic as girls. I think in general, people think that girls are more drama. And sometimes I'm sure girls are way more dramatic, but I learned that boys can be just as dramatic, again, from little to older. So that was an interesting observation as well. But yeah, like they're just like anybody. They want to love, they want to be loved, they want to have a safe space to process their emotions and still be encouraged that they are brave and strong like men are. But that doesn't mean you have to hide things or, that if you're showing emotion, that's weakness.
Absolutely. Is there any stories or anecdotes that you could share about seeing this in action or, situations flipped around from what you and your husband have been doing?
Several stories I can think about. Most of the time, when the guys go where we were living at in Texas, they did not want to be there. Of course, they want to go back home, whether they understood the situation as to why they came there or not. So most of the time, especially when they first come, we hear a lot of negatives about, don't want to be here. You're not my mom. Like, this place stinks. I just want to go home. Why can't I be home? And all of that. And when you're thinking with that mindset, it's really easy not to like fully participate and open up. Um, but that did not stop me because I love digging in. I love talking deep, especially with boys, because I feel like they just don't get that as much as girls sometimes. And some of them would take like a year to crack, some of them shorter, some of them longer. So yeah, by the end of it, whether they graduated or whether they got pulled by their guardians, or if they made a really horrible choice and they got dismissed from the program for safety reasons, we have had several guys um, come back and be like, wow, I'm so sorry that I came in with this like super negative attitude, that I came in like hating the world and hating everybody. Like, you know, I feel like nobody supports me or likes me, and you guys showed that, and it means the world. We've got to the point where one of the guys wants to call Brian, my husband, his dad, which is like so humbling. And of course, we're not doing this for us. We're not doing this for our own praise. Like, honestly, most of the time we were there, we were wondering if we were even making a difference, no matter how hard we tried, because like, I mean, some of them were very, very stubborn about like, I don't want to be here. This isn't fun. Be a downer on every fun thing we try to do, etc. And then I think they were just mad at life and just taking that out on everything, which is very understandable. And I would hear many, many vents about like how life was not fair and everything like that. But yeah, we've had guys who gone from making really poor choices and wanting to run away and all of that to, wow, I didn't realize what I had and until I was gone. And um, the support system they had. Oh, one boy in particular is a great example, is when he walked in the house from school every day. And the first thing we always say while we greet him in the door is, hi, how was your day at school? How was your day? And he said, no one's ever asked me about my day
Mm.
before
Yeah,
coming here. So just even something as little as that um, was really eye-opening. And just how important it is to communicate even the little things, and just even if you don't think it's a big deal, like you don't think you're even being that supportive, just asking the question, like, you'd never know what it means on the other side. So
huge communication for boys. That's a great takeaway. Can you talk a little bit about what you guys do in the outdoors and how that has shaped and changed your approach?
yeah, absolutely. So I grew up traveling, like normal vacation travel with my parents, and I loved that. My husband grew up more with like camping and hikes, and he was an Eagle Scout and all the outdoor wilderness things. But despite all my travels, I did love mountains. I had a thing for mountains. I always wanted to see like the real Rocky Mountains because I grew up in Georgia, and so we have like hills. Some people call them mountains, but to me, for the Rockies, they're like big old hills. And so I always wanted to see the West Coast, wanted to see Colorado, Glacier, Washington, and then worldwide too, all the others. So um, yeah, and when we came together, he's the one that like, all right, well, here's a great way to experience the outdoors without paying a bunch of money. And it's through hiking. And so he was the one that took me on hiking. And I remember it was so funny when I first started, like we were just crossing this little creek. It wasn't a big deal at all. It wasn't deep or anything. And I slipped and I fell in the water. And it was like winter. And he was laughing so hard because I was such an amateur. Um, and yeah, but like throughout the years, like I became all right. Like I love hiking. There's something about it. So not just the destination, but walking through the trail. Something about like the repetitiveness and the views the whole way, the smells, the sounds, like just being fully immersed in nature around things that are untouched by man. There's something about it that's really hard to put into words, for one. But two, when you do get to pretty destinations, whether it's a waterfall and my personal favorite, like a mountain and like an alpine lake around, like that just makes me feel like um home, like
Mhm.
This has got to be what heaven looks like. Like I could spend all day here when especially when there's hardly any people around and it feels like just you and your person and the whole world. And um, I loved it so much that one of the things my husband and I love doing too is taking other people into that, people who have not experienced hiking
Mhm.
or backpacking or canoeing or kayaking, and taking them to the great outdoors and showing them like how refreshing it is. Like no matter what you're going through in life, like you can go on a hike because besides like gas and bring a picnic or whatever, it's
Mhm.
pretty cost efficient, and it feels like you're in another world sometimes. And it's like healing and relaxing for your soul. Like I get some people hiking is just not their thing because it's a lot of exercise and energy and climbing up hills and all of that. So I get it. But just even like if you didn't hike and just went to um a local lake or a local waterfall, like, and just sit there for like at least an hour. There's something about it, I'm sure you understand. It's just like impossible to explain. So we love taking new people
Mhm.
on that and helping them refresh, especially we loved doing it with our teenage guys
Yeah.
because they were at high risk for wanting to do underage drinking, underage smoking, underage drugs of any kind.
Mhm.
You know, when they're older, when they do become of legal age, it's something some of them would express they wanted to do. A lot of them chose escaping through video games, like wanting to escape the hardships of their life through video games. So
Sure.
just getting them out of something like that and finding a different, healthier kind of escape um, was eye changing for them. Like we talked way too much about mountains with them. And then the first summer we took them to the North Carolina mountains in the Blue Ridge, and we walked on top of a mountain, got a photo shoot there together. And one of them said, okay, now I understand why you guys are talking about mountains so much. Um, and then, for those who do consider themselves like believers of the Lord, like, um, I don't know how I can look at something like that and not believe that there's God. Like, how wild for him to make these things that, I don't know, they're just so breathtaking. And I feel closest to God when I'm out in nature, away from all the hustle and bustle. And I think it's a reminder of like, sometimes I think we make our lives way too busy and like to put ourselves in a slower pace. Um, and that does that for me. And we love doing it to other people. And so if people don't know even the first step of like what to bring or pack or prepare,
Mhm.
we love taking newbies. So yeah. Um, and we love tying it into youth. Love tying it into our little boys. Love tying it into ourselves. And it's not like, if our boys grow up and they are not into it, we would not be disappointed in them at
Sure.
all. So it's not like that, but just a great, I believe, healthy way to reset, refresh when life gets too hard. And it's a affordable option as well.
$3.99, except for the supplies, I guess. Is there any Bible verse that you want to share or that you feel
Sure,
inspired by?
sure. So it's a weird one. Most people don't know much about it. Um, but yeah, so I'm gonna butcher it unless you want me to pull it up. But it's Proverbs 14:4, and it says, like where there are no oxen, the trough is clean, but great like um fruit, basically, great harvest comes through the strength of an ox. So I took that to mean like, when you're in your comfort zone, like, and not doing hard work, because like honestly the work we did was hard. Like there were a lot of
Mhm.
tears, a lot of ministry, and that's just for us. I know it could be anything for anybody, so this doesn't just have to apply to youth ministry. um but whatever you're doing, like if you are, it's meaningful or purposeful in some way. Yeah, like it's very easy to just like sit back and not challenge yourself to do something that could be really hard but important. And that would be the trout being clean. But there is great harvest that comes through strength of an ox. So like that means you got to be willing to get dirty. If you're willing to get dirty, there can be a lot of beauty that comes from stuff that otherwise wouldn't have been there had you not bring the oxen. I'm sure it stinks if you bring oxen in to do hard work, metaphorically. Um, but when it does happen, beautiful, beautiful things can happen. And so what we do is not easy by any means. I'm sure what so many people do, like you, what you do that you're so passionate about can be a lot of work and really hard and mentally draining and all the things. And, learning to balance it out between work life or, your mission and your baby. Yeah. But like when we do it, like there is so much that can come out of it. So yeah,
Absolutely.
it's not my favorite verse, but it's one of my favorites because it's so hard to pick a favorite. And so I picked one that I think ties into everything here.
Wonderful conclusion. Can you tell listeners a little bit about supporting you and where they'll go after they click the show link?
Sure. So right now, where we are is back in Georgia with family because as we transition, the place in Texas, they gave us a paycheck, but where we're heading to in Washington State, it's technically considered a missionary position. So we are
Mhm.
raising our support. So the link I'll provide definitely would take you straight to the portal if you felt led to uh, send either a monthly support or a one-time support. 100% of it goes to us, and it's tax deductible. So if you want to put that in your tax too, because it's nonprofit, and it would go to us just like being able to afford the cost of living there. So they provide us with a home, but like bills and just groceries and all of that, it would be for that. And the reason they do that they don't give us a paycheck, is so that they can make the teenage guys that are there more affordable for them to be there for their families. Like they really wanted to cut a deal to their parents because most programs like that can cost like literally like 80 grand, 100 grand. And this makes it really, really affordable for parents who really want to put their guys here, which again has the place we're going to, the purpose is family reconciliation. So
Mhm.
that, if they're having a hard time with their teenage son, put them here and we work with their families, give them a safe place to stay and take care of them and help them like slowly reconnect with their parents and get them to a point where they are great together again. Because that's what we want. We want to see families flourish. And if there's a bump in a road and they just feel like they have no other option, like this is a place for that. So that is why we raise our support. And that's why they're not giving us a paycheck, although they are providing us with a home. So that's if you felt led. If you don't feel led to support financially at all, I totally understand. But we do have an email list link that I can send as well. And then you could just join in on our blog and have all the updates about that. And if you don't mind, I have one closing thought I'd love to share too for everyone.
Please do.
A purpose for being here. And that's that if you feel like you're in a rut of any kind, like in the throes of motherhood, but feeling like you're not doing anything meaningful, like, first of all, you are. Like, you're raising the next generation. You could be impacting literally like 10 generations and you don't even know it. Um, but I also, wanted to share, like, go outside for a hike if you want, like, try it if you haven't tried it before, or find something if you feel like, you're just working and doing family life. And again, that's beautiful. Family life is absolutely beautiful. Working with a ride for your family is beautiful. But just feel like you're in a rut for some reason. Like, I'd challenge you to either like go outside somewhere gorgeous or um, find something that you enjoy doing that's purposeful, whether it's like volunteering at an animal shelter, if you love animals, or, things like that. Like, that's helped me a lot here because I've definitely dealt with postpartum depression and anxiety through my boys. And even though like my whole life was just taking care of other boys, like sometimes I still got in a rut of feeling like, um, you know, what am I doing? Like, I need to refresh and take care of myself, but also like, so what I'm doing, like, am I doing the best I can? Am I helping people? And wondering about all of that. And yeah, even when I was in the throes of living life with 10 boys in the house. So going outside and just spending time outside was a great refresher, putting things back in perspective. And then, like, now that we're in this period without teenage guys, just briefly, like, I'm so ready to get back into it. Like that's what we find fun. That is like I do it for free. Like and it's so meaningful to us. So you just find what's meaningful to you. And if you haven't considered like going to hike a state park, try it. See how you feel. See if it refreshes you or teaches you anything in any way. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Brittany. It's been amazing to have you on this podcast. I just have to make the relation between the oxen and the sneaky boy. We started the episode with that, all the poop stories. And if you stick in there and you have babies or you invite youth into your home, yes, it might be stinky, but the harvest is going to be absolutely worth it. So thank you for your time. And we will ensure those links are included in the show notes. Appreciate you for coming on.
Thank you so much.